Hi guys, my name is Connor. I run the YouTube channel Counterpoints 40K, Counterpoints, and I am live on the Valor Media Network. We are going to be going live 20 to 35 hours a week. We are going to be doing segments. We're going to be breaking things down. We're going to be breaking down the news. We're going to be breaking down current events. We're going to be watching some of the craziest people in politics. We are going to be working out around noon. We are going to do something called Dad Bod Fitness, where we encourage our watchers in order to work out with me as we take our health and our politics seriously. We are going to be watching Nick the Knife Fuentes, one of the most famous distant right-wing commentators on the internet. He is a massive piece of garbage. However, he is also charismatic. He is also funny, and he has tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of young men believing in Christian theocracy, Nazi-adjacent beliefs, Holocaust denial, and praising dissident figures such as Andrew Tate. So he is like the perfect villain. So let's watch the perfect villain do his thing.
I want to get into the Andrew Tate story. Pretty funny. And we'll talk about his whole situation because it's sort of interesting. You know, on this show, I talk a lot about the Jews. I talk about Israel. And the complex about Jews in Israel, of course, is that it's not enough that we talk about the subject, but also the political situation surrounding the subject, which is because of its nature, because we're talking about who is really in control. It's an extremely censored subject. So it has this stigma, and you get in trouble for talking about it, and you get attacked for talking about it, and so on. We talk a lot about the Jews and how it's completely forbidden. But there's something else you're not allowed to talk about, and it's forbidden for the same reason. And I'm finding it more and more, and that's women. If you try to challenge the power of women, and I mean really challenge it, I don't mean you go out there and you're one of these like medieval knight LARPers. You're going out there and saying, my fair trad maiden, my shield maiden is traditional and she's very submissive, but she also tells me what to do. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about these like Christian simps. I'm not talking about these crypto feminists, these Catholics where their wives run their shit. I'm talking about if you really challenge women, you really challenge the power of women. And that's as simple as going to women and saying, hey, shut the fuck up. We don't want to hear you talk. I'll let you know when I want to hear you talk. I don't want to hear you talk right now. So shut the fuck up. When you really have a guy that's out there challenging women and telling guys to challenge women, it seems like that is almost just as much of a forbidden subject as talking about the Jews. And it is.
All right. Off to a strong start. Let's go ahead and start breaking this down a little bit. So Nick is open. He's as open as he's always been. He's as anti-Semitic as he's always been. He used to hide his power level a little bit. I think a few years into it, he got sick of it. So he just started doing it openly. And then he found the platforms that would support him. So the platforms that do support him he created his own independent website so he couldn't get taken down. That's cozy.tv. He does stream on Rumble because Rumble obviously has a very loose terms of service. So they'll let him say pretty wild stuff and they won't punish him for it. And so as a result, he's lost some cultural relevancy because he was banned off of Twitter. He's back on Twitter now. And he was banned off of YouTube, which of course is like one of the most powerful alternative media sites on the planet. And so he opens by saying like, oh yeah, he's virtue signaling a little bit, just like, yeah, we're open about our hatred of Zionism and Jews and how they run the world and this, that, the other. Now, the reason why I kind of differentiate between Christian nationalists and Nazis is because for instance, Yakov in our chat, if you want to say that they're close enough that you don't care, I have no problems with you saying that they're close enough that you don't care. But I do think that they're fundamentally different. National socialists, people who are fans of Adolf Hitler, although Nick Fuentes is a fan of Hitler, they often believe in, especially neo-Nazis, they believe in neo-paganism. They think that Christianity itself is a Jewish subversion of the spirit of the Western man, and it would actually be better to be an atheist, or it would be better to worship the pagan gods of Europe than to worship a Jew as Christ, right? And whereas Christian nationalists often believe that Christianity is the correct religion, and they differ on that. Not only that, but oftentimes Nazis will be like secular materialists, where they will believe in the secular power of government, and they think that the dictator of the government should be the supreme authority in the land. Whereas Christian nationalists will often want their authoritarianism to be cloaked in the religion. They want people to be compelled to follow Christianity. They want their leaders to be Christian. They want the enforcement of social norms to be Christian. So they're Christian authoritarians that defer in policy goals from neo-Nazis. So that's why I make the differentiation. Now, if you want to say that being authoritarian and admiring Hitler is enough for them to be categorized as Nazis in your mind, I have no problem with that. Go ahead and do that. I'm not going to argue with you. I think it's a distinction. It's a distinction with a difference, but that difference is small enough. As a matter of fact, in 1930s Germany, Christian nationalists allied with the Nazi Party. So it's interesting that we're talking about women, because I would fall into the shield maiden trad crypto feminist because I listen to my wife, right? So, this should be obvious. It should be obvious to Nick's audience. It should be obvious to anyone who's had a relationship with a woman or had a relationship in a family. But the whole point of the genders and sexes in a traditional relationship is to be complementary. Okay? I am not a dictator. I am not in charge of my wife. I'm in charge in certain degrees. We absolutely discuss things and we tell each other where the borders are. But I don't tell my wife, shut the fuck up, and expect her to listen to me saying that, right? I expect for us to be fighting and for me to say, listen, I really don't like that you said that. And for her to say, well, you need to hear this. And the truth is, half the time, I do need to hear it. I'm not right all the time. And so this expectation that men will be totally in charge of all relationship decisions and that women just needed to defer to their men is dumb, and it's unhealthy, and it allows you to ignore your weaknesses and ignore your blind spots. Your partner is supposed to be somebody who helps you in your goals, helps you pursue your ambitions, but they're also supposed to be somebody who calls you out on your BS. And if you don't have a partner that calls you out on your BS, then you have a very dumb relationship. So let me, there's a couple of @counterpoints in chat. So let me just address those real quick, and then we'll continue watching. We're still very early into the segment, but I feel like I needed to share that. Woo! So Kalinda says, @counterpoints, he stopped hiding his power level when he was working on Ye's campaign because Ye went full Nazi. I agree. He might have thought that going full Nazi would get them enough attention that they could leverage that into money, time, attention, but obviously that backfired. Yakov says, I talk about Jewish people and women all the time, but I'm not an a-hole, right? Kalinda says, counterpoints, that's correct. Although the OG Nazis were more divided than that, they even made their own weird Christian church, but Himmler and his guys loved all the pagan stuff. Absolutely. Yakov gives me a blue heart and some fist bumps. That's cool. When we say Christian nationalists, what kind of Christianity is it normally? Weirdly enough, there is a split. So Catholicism has a healthy chunk of authoritative structure built into it. So Nick Fuentes and the Groypers are Catholics, but there are Orthodox Christian nationalists like Andrew Wilson. And then there's, I don't think there's any Protestant Christian nationalists, to be honest, none that I'm aware of, because Protestantism has within it the division to understand, like, it's like more personal. It's more of like a personal understanding of the faith. And therefore, I think Protestantism literally, or excuse me, I should say actually, is actually less prone to Christian nationalism, although they can be co-opted as supporters. Protestant Christians are often co-opted as supporters, but I would say the leaders are oftentimes going to be Catholic or Orthodox. Ba, 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 ba. Okay, cool. That's enough. Let's continue the content.
You also have equally the same amount of obfuscation. What I mean by that is when you talk about who runs society, people are always doing these gymnastics to say, well, it's not really the Jews. They'll say that it's satanic pedophiles. They're just blaming the Jews, or they'll say it's globalists, or they'll say it's leftists who happen to be Jewish. They're always contorting themselves. They're sort of admitting there's a problem. They're admitting the problem, which is that a minority that hates us is running society in a conspiratorial way. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows what's up, but they have to come up with these like convoluted theories to obfuscate the reality and say, really, it's something else. And the same thing happens with women, because guys get to a certain age and they're like, you know what? Women suck. Like, they're talking too much. They're not hot anymore. Like, you're fat, you're chubby, you're not as hot as you think you are. You fucking talk too much. You're a bitch.
What?
Why do you have this job? You don't know anything. You're an idiot. You're like, you can't tell me anything I don't know. As a matter of fact, you couldn't name 5 countries. You couldn't tell me what continent China's in. How do you have a job? How are you getting paid?
Oh, no, Nick.
Everybody kind of realizes women need to be taken down a peg. Women are in control. Women are running our lives. They're clearly not up to the task. They need to be taken down a peg. And equally, just like the obfuscation with Jews, you have all these people saying, no, that's not the problem. The problem is modern women. They say it's all these degenerate modern women. You need to find yourself a good girl who's traditional and Christian and conservative. It's like they're telling us what to do too. They're talking way too much too. Half the time when you go on Twitter and you have some stupid bitch wagging her finger.
Jesus. Okay, listen, I'm sorry for all the profanity, but he's got tens of thousands of followers, so we kind of need to go for it. Mr. Bombastic says, how do people choose their denominations based on aesthetic or what? Yes, they literally, they analyze whether or not they like the history of the Orthodox Church better, or whether or not they like the history of the Catholic Church better. And also they probably align, let's be real, with their families. If their parents are Catholic, they'll probably be Catholic. If their parents are non-denominational, then it's probably a 50-50 toss-up. So yeah, it is based off of aesthetic. Hill Williams says, this is like that 40-year-old virgin scene where Steve Carell is talking about what a breast feels like. It's like sand. It feels like a bag of sand. Nice. The Crawling Chaos says, what? Sound teenage boy logic. Yeah, this is bananas. This is a bag of sand. Sapien Green says, I have to wonder whether if all Jews moved to Israel and didn't own anything, if other countries like if people like Fuentes would stop thinking they secretly rule the world. No. So Sapien Green, the way that it works, at least according to Nick Fuentes and the Christian nationalists and the neo-Nazis, is that all Jews will never move to Israel, right? Because they need the Jews in all of the other countries to subvert the host nations and make the host nation sympathetic to Israel, because Israel is small enough that if it did not have the technological, financial, military, logistical support from the United States, then it technically could get swallowed by its neighbors. Now, the good news is its neighbors are incompetent militarily, but Israel probably needs the backing of the United States to survive a nuclear Iran. They probably need the backing of the United States in order to survive fighting all of its neighbors at once. Now, of course, in the 1970s, it did fight all of its neighbors at once, and it did acquit itself well, right? So it's not a totally true theory, but even Nick would just assume that if 99% of Jews went to Israel and there was 1% remaining in the world, the 1% would still be subverting the societies that they're a part of, right? Even if they were like normie working class Jews who had nothing to do with media, nothing to do with government, etc. I have a feeling that he would still find a way to blame them for the subversive support for the Zionist government of Israel, right? So we kind of covered we're a few minutes in, and he's really trying to make an analogy. He's still bringing up the Jews so he can attack the Jewish people. But he's also talking about, he's using this as an example in order to talk about women, where, according to him, women suck. They talk too much. They're fat. They're witchy. They're dumb. They can't tell him anything we don't know. You can't name 5 countries. Now, what's interesting about this is we engaged with a couple of Fresh and Fit panels where in the opening of the Fresh and Fit panel, it was terrible content, so I don't recommend you watch those segments. But we watched the Fresh and Fit panel where part of the opening was asking women to name 3 countries. And these are all like Instagram models, right? They're all OnlyFans models. So they're very attractive, but they're not particularly academic, I guess is the best way to put it. And what was funny about it is 70% of them were able to at least name several countries, right? So the reason why he's using the 5 countries meme is because there were women who paused. They didn't know anything. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. But even in the example where you're selecting for the most attractive, most vapid, least academically inclined women, 2/3 of them did just fine. And then also in the shows that we watched, they were asking questions of like, how much would it cost for you to do pornography? And there were 2 or 3 women who were like, I'm not interested in that. There isn't a dollar amount that you could list. My intimate content, my intimacy is reserved for my partner, blah, 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 blah. So even in the most selected, aggressive, misogynistic, and I'm not saying that like, ooh, you're bad if you're a misogynist. I'm saying like it's actively they dislike women, okay? Even in the most misogynistic content, they still find 3/4 of women have something redeemable about them going on in their brains. And they still find that 30% of the women, they don't believe that they have a price for their sexuality. So the cynicism that he's sharing, I don't even think lines up with the black pill content that currently exists. Also, last point before we allow him to continue to go, modern women are degenerate as obfuscation. You need to find a nice Christian girl. Okay. My wife isn't perfect. She's not a perfect human being, but she is a darn good human being. Okay. When I don't want to share too much, but I met her at a job. We worked together as peers. I saw that she dealt with stress very well. I saw that she worked incredibly hard. I saw that she cared about the people that were around her. We talked and became kind of friends. I was interested romantically, but she had a boyfriend, so I didn't like interfere in their relationship or anything. And then they were having a rough relationship, and eventually they broke up. And then we went on a date, and we clicked. Like within like a month, I was just like, I told somebody, I was like, this is my wife, and it's because she's a hard worker, she is intelligent, she's emotive, she's sympathetic, she's tough. And she's a fundamentally good person. And so I found somebody who was willing to call me out on my BS and work with me as a partner in life. So, yeah, your wife isn't always going to be your biggest cheerleader. Sometimes she's going to be your critic, but that is a part of her role. And here's the other thing that somebody told me. Last point, I promise. When I was first dating my wife, I was scared to commit. And I was listening to my friend. I was like, I like this, and this about her. I think she's so cool for this, and this reason, but these are her flaws. And my friend stopped me and he said, what makes you so freaking great? And I realized it was like a revelation. I was in my mid-20s. I was like, holy smack. I have this total evaluation of my partners where I evaluate them off of categories where I'm hoping that they're going to max out all of these categories. But I don't max out all of my categories. I'm annoying. I talk too much. I'm a nerd. I'm socially awkward at parties because I will yap my face off to anyone who asks me any question about any topic that I'm passionate about. I could list my other flaws, but the point is I'm annoying sometimes. So the goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to find somebody who is compatible and helps you be who you need to be. Yeah. Yeah. Eon Flux says, same, bro. I'm sorry for the yap, but there's actually like The good news is there's a lot of actual real substance to deal with while he's being so cynical. All right, let's continue.
In your face. She's a Christian. She's got a Proverbs in bio. She's got a Bible verse in her bio. People say, no, it's just those degenerate, modern, left-wing, blue-haired feminist girls. I want a good trad Christian girl. Half the time it's the girls with the Bible verses in the bio that are the problem. So they're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple. It's literally that simple.
Sorry, we need to rewind that.
Anyway,
bro.
Always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple. It's literally that simple. Anyway, that's the big picture. You know, that's your macro level, 30,000 foot view. That's the big picture, guys. The big picture is, yes,
Jesus Christ.
It is.
So listen. Yeah. What a psycho. This attitude could not survive touching grass. Okay, it really couldn't. If you go to Washington D.C., and I've only been once, I'm hoping to go many more times. But if you go to Washington D.C., it's many powerful people who are negotiating the future of the country, and they are not just Jews; they are also the Goyim. You know, they're whites, they're Protestants, they're Catholics, they're this, they're that, and they're all negotiating for their piece of the pie, right? So no, it's not just the Jews running society. Obviously, there's strong Zionist sympathy in Washington, D.C., but that has been worked on for a century actively through Israelis and American Jews talking about how they got screwed over in the 20th century and how they want to make sure that Israel isn't destroyed. That didn't happen by accident. It isn't conspiratorial. It isn't manipulative. It's the open advocacy of Jews within Washington, D.C. to say, hey, we kind of don't want to be murdered for our identity, and we kind of want the state of Israel to continue to exist, right? It's not a secret. They'll tell you that to your face, right? Then women need to shut up. Okay, sometimes I wish my wife wouldn't give me some guff. That's true. But the truth is, sometimes I'm annoying, and sometimes I need to be told to shut up, and sometimes I need to be told to dial it back in. Okay? It's a give and take. Sometimes she needs to relax and she needs to calm down, and sometimes I need to relax and I need to calm down. Okay? And then finally, blacks need to be in jail for the most part. This would not survive actual contact with the black community. Okay? When I was getting into law enforcement, of course, I was aware of FBI uniform crime report statistics that half of violent homicides are committed by 13% of the population, which is the black population. It's really 6% of the population because it's male, and it's really like 2% of the population because it's black males between the ages of 15 and 40, right? That's who commits a disproportionate amount of the homicides. But when you actually go work the street, what ends up happening is you meet the black neighbors, you meet the working class black men who are going to mow lawns all day, and then they get a beer at 4 p.m. because they just worked their ass off for 8 hours. You meet the church ladies who get dressed up on Sundays in order to go to church. You meet the teachers and mentors and men within the community who are trying to get the gangbanging kids off of the street. Now, you also meet some really bad people too. You do meet 40 and 50-year-old men who are recruiting 16-year-olds into drug operations. You meet 16-year-old kids who tell you that if you arrest them, they're going to murder your entire family, right? So you do meet bad guys too. But the interesting thing about it is that the bad guys are in a city of 15,000 with a black community of 3,000, there was probably 50 to 100 black men and women who were involved in the drug trade and crime, and there were probably 6 murderers. So out of a population of 3,000, right? So literally 95% of the black people in the black community, in the impoverished area where you get all the homicides and you get the shootings and you get the stabbings and you get to this and you get to that, 95% of them are working class folk who wake up, go to their jobs, pay their bills, pay their taxes, go home and try to take care of their families. That's 95% of people in the black community. So this perspective is insane, and it can only be sustained by not interacting with the real world. The Crawling Chaos says, I think that Nick would feel home in Iran or Afghanistan. I agree. Eon Flux says, isn't he a white Christian nationalist? It's so funny. He's talking smack about people with Bible verses in bio. True. Harmonic Fox. He'd be at home until Rainy Day Women number 12 and 35 Bob Dylan plays. If you know, you know. I don't know. Candace Gray says, do you think the majority of the people who watch Nick do it for dark humor? My instinct is to throw a cream pie in his face and fall down laughing. Well, yeah, like, so that's funny to me. So I'll tell you what I found funny about that segment, because this is entertaining. I'm not going to lie. It's entertaining. What's funny is he's calling me a nerd for thinking that social issues are complex. And then he says, no, here's the simple solution. Right? So I'm sure that there's people like me who laugh at him making fun of me for believing that solutions are actually complex, because let's face them, they are complex. But there probably are people who are like, no, I sincerely believe that. I'm not like, this is a quote. Okay. This is a quotation of somebody else saying this. So don't clip this. Okay. But there are probably young men in his audience who say, no, Nick is right. Jews are running society. Women need to shut up, and blacks need to be in jail, and society would be paradise. And it is that simple. So I don't know what the proportions of his audience are watching him for, like, dark, ironic, hyperbolic humor. And I don't know how many of them are believers. I really don't. But the truth is, his audience is tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of young men in the United States. So this is good content, though. I'm not going to lie.
They are the problem. More and more, I know this is like Mr. Based. Okay, I know this is Mr. Based on the phone. But the older I get, the more I realize it is really this simple. We need white men in charge of everything again. That's it. Like, it's that simple. You sort of start to get based and you kind of realize what's up. And you have this inkling in your head. You're like, man, we need white men in charge of everything. And then people kind of get convinced, like, no, it's about ideology. We need like right-wing patriots that love the free market. Or like, no, we need like trad Christians. It's like, no, dude, we need white men running everything. Okay. White men need to run the household. They need to run the country. They need to run the companies. They just need to run everything. It's a pretty good heuristic. And people say, but women can do stuff too. Yeah, like some of them can. But like, would you rather have a country where white men are running 100% of everything and maybe the like 3 intelligent women are out of a job? Or would you rather live in the society we have now, where we're really rolling the dice on the diversity hires? I would rather live in white Manistan. Okay, I would rather secede. I'm going to live with Eric Arville and white Manistan, where white men run everything. And that's all that there is. No, but anyway, so we're going to get into the Andrew Tate story. The reason I bring all that up is because this is a guy. What crime did he commit besides sex trafficking, besides probably hitting women, which is whatever? What crime did he really even commit? No, I'm joking, obviously, but this guy literally just popularized.
What an a-hole. Sorry, I'm laughing, but I'm also taking psychic damage simultaneously. Like that was brutal. That was brutal. Sapien Green said, is Nick technically white? Fuentes. Listen, look, if I could, I'm not going to, but I could. If I took a screenshot of this, I put this into Adobe Photoshop, and then I got the paint eyedropper and I clicked here, it would be taupe, right? It would be white. So I'm not going to deny his whiteness. There are white Hispanics. It's funny that most Nazis in America are Hispanic, but that we're not neither here nor there. And then this is interesting because I think that I used to say that Nick Fuentes was a Christian nationalist, not like a race supremacist. But this obviously, this is even if he claims himself that he's a Christian nationalist, this is just white supremacist rhetoric, right? It is saying that white men are legitimately better. We should run everything. Blacks are criminals. Blacks are degenerates. Jews are running society, et cetera, et cetera. Therefore, we should just be running everything. And here's what's interesting is that from a metrics-based standpoint, crime is down 50% since the 1990s. Divorce rates have stabilized, meaning that we peaked in divorce. Now we're back down to slightly less divorce than we had before. That's probably because people are being more selective about who they ultimately marry. We are below demographic replacement rate. I think that, Americans are at 1.8. I think white Americans are at like 1.5. Realistically, we should be at 2.15 if we want to stabilize the population instead of decrease in population. But that's something that we could do by like making sure that we have a pro-natal culture and that we have enough material resources that people feel like they can live good lives and provide for their children, right? So these things could all be dialed in, and this isn't World War II. We don't have hundreds of thousands of young men dying. This isn't the Civil War. We don't have hundreds of thousands of young men dying. This isn't Vietnam, where we had 55,000 people die in Vietnam, many of whom were conscripted into the war. So he's like totally blackpilling and doomer pilling over one of the best times to be alive in American history. Now, I still have plenty of economic criticisms of like the modern dynamics, but he's appealing to losers and nerds and nihilists who shouldn't be losers and nerds and nihilists. Come on, bro. We can lift weights. We can go to church. We can meet young women. We can talk to them non-autistically. We can try to find the good women who are worth marrying. We can see if we can align goals in order to have children and work jobs. We can do this as a gender, right? And he's just buying into the black pill. I hate it. Now, he did say that it was a joke. He's like, what did Andrew Tate really even do besides sex trafficking and hitting women? And we watched a documentary the other day where it's like, yeah, he definitely committed rape. Like, not statutory rape where he was doing BDSM with a 15-year-old, which is already like pedophile rapist shit. Excuse my French. But no, he's an actual rapist. There are 2 women in the UK who say that he used the lover boy method in order to get them into relationships. Then he physically abused and raped them. And with one of those, the stories were so similar that law enforcement tried to get a criminal case going against Andrew Tate. And one of those women had voicemails where Andrew Tate admitted to beating and raping her. So like, no, he's a rapist. And we're lionizing a rapist. Now, Nick is probably going to make this like relatively tongue-in-cheek, so we're going to give him the opportunity to articulate his thoughts. However, like, no, he did hit women, he did do sex trafficking, and he did rape. So we have a Christian nationalist defending a rapist. So let's see where he goes with this.
Being sexist. That's what he did.
Wrong.
I actually believe he said this, and some people laughed about it. I said it was legitimate. Tate said that he was a big part of why Trump won the election. If you look at the demographics that Trump won, the big story, the headline of the 2024 election is the rightward shift of young men. That's the headline. When you talk about the demographics where there was a major upset, Trump won more Hispanics. He won more blacks than ever before. That's somewhat notable. But by far the biggest upset is how young men shifted all the way to the right in this election. It was unbelievable, even just from 2020, especially from 16 and 12. I think you have to look at Andrew Tate and say he is certainly responsible for a big part of that. At one time, years ago, he was literally the most famous person in the world. And to this day, I think is among the most famous people, extremely influential, a lot of credibility with the young people. And he's pushing a message. I mean, his big message is don't trust women. Don't let your life be controlled by women. Don't be a simp. Don't be bending over backwards. We don't live in a matriarchy. We should live in a patriarchy. Men should be working hard, making money, and should be in control of their own lives. For this, it's like an international manhunt. And we know that he was thrown in jail in Romania and then put under house arrest, never even saw a trial. And I want to talk tonight about some of the recent developments, and I'll set it up like this. So finally, they let him go in Romania. They don't bring it to trial. They don't really find any evidence. The whole thing sounds like BS. He comes to the United States, and the first thing that happens is Ron DeSantis, the governor of the state of Florida, comes out and says, well, I had no idea he was coming, but he's not welcome here, and we're going to get the attorney general to investigate him. And you say, first of all, why does it matter? Why would the governor of a major U.S. state, this is one of the biggest states with the biggest population, with the biggest economy, among the biggest, why would the governor of one of the most important U.S. states be personally apprised of whether a U.S. citizen enters the borders of the United States? He says, oh, I had no idea he was coming. Why would you? Why would that be your concern? Is this not a free country? That's one. And then two, he says, well, we're going to look into him. We're going to investigate him. The attorney general's coming after him. And then the attorney general is holding court with the press saying, we're going to find out about this guy. Basically saying before they even have conducted an investigation, brought charges, proved anything in court, they're saying, we're coming after this guy. Now, you would say by itself, I mean, without even considering the circumstances surrounding Andrew Tate in particular.
Sorry, I just wanted to give him enough room to talk. That way I'm not just pausing him every 5 minutes for a 10-minute yap, okay? So we know that Andrew Tate used the Loverboy method in order to get dozens of women to fly out to Romania in order to work as webcam models. They did not know originally that they would be webcam models. He socially isolated them, and then he encouraged them to create sexual content so he could make tens of thousands of dollars off of that content. The reason why we know that he employed the Loverboy method, the reason why we know that he flew these women out and effectively tricked them and socially isolated them in order to becoming digital prostitutes is because he said it. Andrew Tate said it. He talks about the Loverboy method. He used to have a class called PhD. It was pimping hoes something, right? It was literally a class about how to emotionally manipulate women into doing anything possible for you. He's talked about this openly. He's talked about manipulating people into sex work openly. Then for hitting women, not only do we have the allegations from the Romanian women who felt like their passports were taken, they were socially isolated, they were cut off from family, they were raped, et cetera, et cetera. We also just have this last week when he was in California because he fled Florida because Florida was investigating him. There was an Instagram model. Weird that he's dating Instagram models, right? But there was an Instagram model that he went on dates with, and she showed the bruises on her face. And she was like, this dude hit me. We were having sex, and this dude hit me without any kind of like consent. I didn't agree to BDSM. I didn't agree to battery. I didn't agree to any of this. He just started choking me and hitting me for no reason. And so we don't just have old evidence, we have new evidence, right? Then rape, we also have the UK case where we just watched it the other day. There's literally two women who say he started a relationship, he started physically abusing them, he raped them, and then we have voicemails from Andrew Tate saying, yep, I physically abused you. Yes, I physically abused you during sex. Yes, I did sex things that you didn't want to do. And as a result, you can go fuck yourself. That's what Andrew Tate said on voicemail. So we know he's a rapist. We know he's a sex trafficker. We know that he hits women. And somehow this is supposed to be virtuous. This is what young men are supposed to look up to. This is what the based Christian nationalist is arguing should be held up as an example for young people. Like, Nick, you moron, what are you doing? Like, I get like being controversial in order to make money is something that a lot of people do. And so I don't begrudge him being controversial to make money. What I do begrudge him is flying the flag of Christianity, flying the flag of religion while defending a sex trafficking, abusive rapist. That's criminally insane. So he's giving Andrew Tate substantive credit for shifting men right wing. And he's saying that all Andrew Tate really did was say, don't let women control you and work hard and make money. We don't live in a matriarchy. We live in a patriarchy, and we should live in a patriarchy. If that's all he was saying, then there wouldn't be a problem. Okay? There wouldn't be a problem. I can tell you right now on the camera, men should work hard so they can have the things that they want, but also so they can provide for their families. I can tell you that because of the dynamics within my wife and I's relationship, she is a homemaker. She takes care of our children and she provides for the logistics that are necessary in order for our home to function. She does cook most of the time. She does clean most of the time. I help out as I can because it is a big job, but she handles the domestic responsibilities substantively. If I had to put it at a ratio, it's like 80-20 to her. She handles the domestic side. And then for me, for finances, I handle 100% of the financial side. We are specialized. We have deferring responsibilities that are traditional, right? He's saying there's no evidence in Romania. He's wrong. There's still evidence in Romania. They're still building the case. And honestly, I think they probably could have charged it and done it already. But obviously, Romania is like a kleptocratic, corrupt country, which is why Andrew Tate moved there in the first place. You can find clips of him saying, I moved to Eastern Europe because it's corrupt. I moved to Eastern Europe because I would be able to pimp women easier. I moved to Eastern Europe because they have a more traditional view on male stuff. And so my behavior would be more tolerated in Eastern Europe, right? So he does still have a case, and Andrew Tate is probably betting on the corruption of the Romanian government and the incompetence of the UK government so he can avoid jail or prison. And then Ron DeSantis investigated the sex trafficking, or wanted to investigate the sex trafficking and rape crimes, and he did take it personal that Andrew Tate was in his state. Do you know why he took it personal in his state? Is because somebody told him that by the way, it's allegedly the Trump administration who helped him get his travel ban lifted. Okay? So allegedly, Trump, the alleged rapist, the billionaire alleged rapist, who says when you're rich and powerful, you can do whatever you want. You can grab him by the pussy. And then he was accused of grabbing a woman by her pussy, and he lost a defamation he lost a defamation and sexual assault lawsuit. He got the travel restrictions lifted for the Tate brothers, and then the Tate brothers traveled to the United States, and then Ron DeSantis, in my opinion, very actual conservative principled, said, I don't want a rapist in my state. I don't want a rapist raping my citizens. I don't want a rapist partying in Miami and physically abusing and sex trafficking more women. Therefore, if he has all these credible criminal allegations against them, hell yeah, we're going after him. And do you know what happened as soon as Ron DeSantis said that? Despite Andrew Tate saying that he was going to stay and try to get Ron DeSantis overthrown as governor, Andrew Tate fled. He ran away, and he found a woman in California to probably, let's not say rape because she didn't allege rape, but to have sex with and then physically abuse. Why would Ron DeSantis, a Christian, why would Ron DeSantis, a social conservative, why would Ron DeSantis, a fiscal conservative, be interested in doing apologia for a person who is credibly accused of sex trafficking, is known to have raped people, and is known to have physically abused people? There is no real answer here that Nick Fuentes can base in scripture or social conservatism, the only thing that he can do is appeal to social relevance in Andrew Tate being on the right-wing team. That's the only thing that he can appeal to. He cannot appeal to principle. He can only appeal to team-based dynamics that involve anti-Semitism and misogyny. And by the way, when I say anti-Semitism or misogyny, I'm not saying it in the liberal or progressive way. I'm not clutching my pearls. I'm not going, oh, you're anti-Semitic. Oh, you're misogynist. That's not what's happening. What I am saying is, descriptively, Nick Fuentes does not like women. That's just a description. You don't have to make a moral judgment, right? It's bad, but you don't have to be like, you don't have to pearl clutch about it, right? Then when it comes to anti-Semitism, he's literally an anti-Semite. I'm not saying like, oh, anti-Semitism's so bad, I'm going to use this magic word as a spell in order to cast you back into hell. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you descriptively do not like women. You descriptively do not like Jews. That's it. Okay. I apologize for being passionate, but what I really dislike about this is cloaking yourself in the robes of religion and then using that as a pretext with which to dismiss actual criminal behavior. It is gross. Nick is charismatic. He's funny. Nobody's denying that. He is doing actually evil shit. He is doing something that is bad, and he probably knows that it's bad, and he doesn't care. Let's continue.
Particular, you would say, just in general, that that's messed up. You would say, what kind of country do we live in where you have the governor of the state saying, oh, someone, a U.S. citizen flew here? Well, we're coming after them. Now we're just going to come after them. We're opening up a criminal case, not based on any police report, not based on evidence, nothing like that. Well, you know, he's here. We don't like him. We're just going to start digging into him. We're going to raid his house. We're going to look through his shit.
Based.
But what's richer, what makes it even better is I thought Florida is the state where woke goes to die. Isn't that what DeSantis always says? He says, I'm the governor of the free state of Florida. They always say that. The free state of Florida. It's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Ron DeSantis from the free state of Florida, where woke goes to die. So of all places, it's Florida. And I would guess it doesn't help that Andrew Tate has criticized Israel.
Hold up. I'm sorry. I've already given you like a 5 to 10 minute spiel, and so I don't want to keep yapping. Even if you are rabidly pro-Palestine, even if you were an anti-Semite, even if you hated Jews with every fiber of your being, you could still think that sex trafficking, rape, and battery are bad. Even if you were a Nazi, even if you were a anti-Semitic Christian nationalist, even if you were a Christian theocrat, you could still think that sex trafficking, rape, and physical abuse of women is something that deserves jail or prison sentences. This is absolute cope. This is Nick Fuentes trying to appeal to Andrew Tate fans by saying, like, even though you're controversial, even though your creator sucks, even though your creator is a criminal, even though your creator has like all these values that are antithetical to social conservatism, I'm on your team. Don't worry about it. And so he's trying to, in my opinion, he is cynically appealing to that demographic. Dicky Boy says new channel. No, actually, I'll share a little bit. So Dicky Boy asks an important question, and I want to thank the 50 plus people who are hanging out with us right now. Okay. We're going to grow it. We're going to keep growing it. So Christian Blair's answered the question, but I'm going to answer it anyways. Valor Media Network is an offshoot of Midas. It is being run by a gentleman by the name of Ken, who is a military veteran. He, I think the way that it was pitched to me, I'm not saying this is totally correct, but this is my understanding of it, is that there is plenty of insane far right and far left content And so as a result, there needs to be a place for young men to go that isn't totally psychotic. And so they're creating like, you see the Game Within on your screen. That's a sports podcast. There's the Gee Dunk podcast, which is like two veterans yapping about current events. That's another good podcast. I'm trying to think of what else. Gee Dunk, there's Men Talking Mindfulness. It's two guys who are like psychological gurus who talk about like healing from trauma and all that kind of stuff. And most of the goal, somebody saying like non-toxic male mentorship, it's kind of that, right? So I think that some of that can feel ephemeral. Some of it can feel a little bit like weak if you're just trying to help men who are injured, right? However, one, it's needed. And then two, they needed somebody who was already in the mud and willing to go into the mud in order to call out the BS. And so I said, if I got to stream 20 to 35 hours a week, and if I got to react to and break down some of the worst people in our society, that would be my dream job. And so Ken said, okay, come work for me. And we agreed to a contract. And so in 6 months, if I am at, no offense to the beautiful 55 souls who are currently watching this program, if I'm at 55 viewers in 6 months, then we're probably not going to renew the show, right? I'm going to have to go back to the wage cage, and we'll move on. However, if I stream 20 to 30 hours a week and we start getting 500, 1,000, 2,000 people, we get a little bit of donations, we get a little bit of time, we get a little bit of attention, all that kind of stuff, then we could be a show. We could be a show full time, and then I'm just doing this forever, which would be my dream job. So anyways, that's what's going on. So Counterpoints and Counterpoints 40K are still channels that I'll be working on in the background. However, I will be live 20 to 35 hours a week on Valor Media Network. Anyways, speaking of which, if you are just paying your bills, if you are broke, if you are a wage cage slave, if you are barely surviving, I do not want your money. I just want you to scroll over to the like button on the stream, and I want you to click the like button on the stream. And if you have the capacity to do so, I want you to engage in chat. I want you to type out whatever you're thinking. That way I can engage with it. If you do have money, if you have a 401k, if you have a retirement plan, if you have savings and you like the idea, you like the project, you think that this content does have value, then I am going to post a link right now, which is effectively a tip link that if you want to do a donation, please do a donation at that link. Then what I would say too is, if the link is broken, if it's not working for whatever reason, please let me know because we just need to make sure that everything is working for the channel. I'm going to engage with chat for a second before we keep moving. Spirit Walker says it's important to live. It's important to like this program. If you want to support this, it's important for the algorithm. It is. Please like it so more people know that we're live. Ren says Elon Musk has never had an original thought in his head. He has bought companies that were already performing. He bought the Tesla name from the originators of the brand. He hasn't really upgraded. The only thing that he supposedly did anything to was the Cybertruck, which was his creation. And look how many times it's been recalled. Yeah, the Cybertruck sucks, by the way. They were so close to making a Warthog utility vehicle from the video game series Halo, and they screwed up the design. It's terrible. I'm assuming you're further back in the VOD, but you'll get here eventually, and you'll see what's going on. So tip link is in the chat. If you want to share some money, please do so. Financial support is always appreciated. If you're broke, then go ahead and just like the stream. Or if you don't feel like sharing money, that's totally fine. Just like the stream and engage in chat. All right, let's continue.
I'm sure that doesn't help either. And you only have to look at what's happening to everybody else in this country. If you criticize Israel, you're being deported. If the university isn't pro-Israel, they're getting all their money taken. We'll talk about that later tonight. Is it really a stretch that Ron DeSantis, one of the most pro-Israel governors who has traveled to Israel, signed laws in Israel, penalized companies, schools on behalf of Israel, pushed the Trump administration to move the embassy in Israel, gets money from the Adelsons? Is it a stretch to say that Andrew Tate arrived in Florida and they literally launched a politically motivated persecution for no reason other than that he has criticized Israel in the past? I don't think that's a stretch at all.
I think it's absolutely a stretch. You can say that Andrew Tate's anti-Zionist, anti-Israeli advocacy was a part of the reason why Ron DeSantis went after him. But if I was a social conservative and I had a rapist, sex trafficker, female abuser in my state, and I was the governor, and I wanted to project strength, then I would 100% say, hey, we did a preliminary look at the Andrew Tate allegations. We think some of this stuff is disturbing. He's still pending sex trafficking charges in Romania. We don't want a person like this in our state. As a result, I'm directing the state attorney in order to look into him to see if we can uncover any other criminal behavior. If we do find criminal behavior conducted within the state of Florida or something that we can charge that he's conducted overseas, we will charge him and we will put him in a jail or prison. Ron DeSantis saying that I don't like people who rape and abuse women is perfectly in line with a social conservative perspective, let alone a pro-Zionist perspective. You could be a Nazi and still think that beating and raping women is bad. This is a very weak and dumb take that probably only appeals to the dumbest parts of Nick's audience.
And by the way, that just goes to show, and this is really besides the point, but it just goes to show there is a tension that is deep within the heart of the Republican Party, which is that on the one hand, they like to say these things like, we're the free state of Florida, woe goes to die, we love free speech, and all of that. And then on the other side, they're throwing people in jail for criticizing Israel. They're deporting people for criticizing Israel. They're making it so that you can't get a federal contract unless you pledge allegiance to Israel. Sooner or later, we got to talk about that. Sooner or later, someone in the GOP needs to be confronted. How are you going to be calling yourself the free state of Florida and it's a Jewish police state? You can't do it. But anyway, so he comes to Florida. They're looking into him.
I'm sorry if I'm not objecting to all of it. I just think some of this is obviously such baloney. As an example, he's talking about like, oh, you're going to jail for criticizing Israel. No, you're not. What happened was there were two protesters that we know of, Mahmoud Khalil and another gal from Turkey. The gal from Turkey, I actually don't think should have been deported. She was critical of the state of Israel. She was pro-Palestinian, but she didn't endorse any terrorist organizations. She is on a student visa. So the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, did revoke her student visa, right? And she got deported, or she's in the process of being deported. Mahmoud Khalil, on the other hand, he worked for being a negotiator and an advocate for a student organization known as CUAD. And CUAD occupied a bunch of buildings in the Columbia University, and Mahmoud Khalil was a negotiator on their behalf and ostensibly a leader of the organization. Well, CUAD released 1 year after the October 7, 2023 attacks, they released a glorious review of the October 7, 2023 attacks that glorified their martyrs and glorified the holy struggle, the Al-Aqsa flood. And in my opinion, if you are going to be sympathetic to or glorify terrorist organizations, I don't need you in my country. There's a law called deportable aliens, and it talks about people who have been granted residency status within the United States. One of the things that can result in your revocation of a residency status is glorifying terrorist organizations or terrorist activities. I am perfectly fine with that law. I have no problems with it. If you disagree, if you're a liberal, you think that free speech and freedom of conscience is sacrosanct, good for you. I'm happy for you. I don't. I think freedom of speech and freedom of conscience is sacrosanct for citizens. I think that people who are coming here as guests to our country have to earn the rights by becoming citizens and buying into our republic. If they don't buy into our republic, if they are hostile to our republic, if they glorify terrorism, if they're hostile to our allies, they don't need to be here. They can go be hostile to us and hostile to our way of life and hostile to our allies in a different location. I literally don't care. So that's my opinion.
Somehow the investigations dropped. I don't know, maybe there was a back channel, but Andrew Tate reports that he's spoken to the governor or the representatives from the governor. And I guess that's over now, according to Andrew Tate.
Because he left.
He flies back to Romania, and while he's outside the country, which is in a way putting himself in peril, you figure that he arrives in America and he has all this trouble, leaves America, and what happens? Some woman comes out of the woodwork and says that she was domestically abused. She was emotionally, verbally, and physically abused by Andrew Tate.
Yep.
And this is the story. This is from the New York Times. It says, quote, A Los Angeles woman is suing Andrew Tate, the online influencer known for promoting misogynistic views, accusing him of physically and sexually abusing her while they were in a relationship. The civil complaint filed on Thursday in Superior Court in Los Angeles County by Brianna Stern claimed that Mr. Tate choked, beat, and verbally degraded her while they were in a relationship that began last July and included a hotel stay in California this month. Mr. Tate denied the allegations through his representatives. His legal team said, quote, "This is a blatant cash grab, a desperate attempt by a sad individual to exploit Andrew's success and reputation for personal gain. She has chosen to air her false claims in the press, revealing her true motives, money and attention, not justice." In the 30-page lawsuit, Ms. Stern accused Andrew Tate of threatening her with violence and psychologically controlling her during their relationship. She asked the court for a restraining order, saying that he had forced her to install an app on her phone so he could track her and give him the passwords to her social media accounts. According to the lawsuit, she and Mr. Tate met in July 2024. Ms. Stern, a model and influencer with her own cryptocurrency coin, was searching for advice. She said Mr. Tate was looking for models to join him in Romania to help promote his crypto meme coin. She went to Romania and they began a relationship, discussing plans to live together in the United States. She said at times he was loving and kind, but also berated her and hit her. She said in the lawsuit that Mr. Tate assaulted her during a stay at the Beverly Hills Hotel. He choked and beat her until she lost consciousness. While doing so, Tate told her repeatedly if she ever crossed him, he was going to kill her, said the lawsuit. She waited to report the assault to the police until after the brothers left the United States. They returned to Romania on March 22nd for a hearing there. And she says she did this to avoid retaliation.
Okay. I don't know what he's going to say, but we have women in Romania who said that their passports were taken and that they were physically, emotionally, and verbally abused by Andrew Tate and compelled to believe that they were not free to leave. When they did leave, they had bodyguards travel with them, and they were, Andrew Tate, through his own self-admission, used the Loverboy method in order to try to manipulate women into being sex workers. So we have the Romanian people, and he just admitted, despite saying that the Romanian charges were BS 10 minutes ago, he just admitted that the Tate brothers had to return to Romania for a court hearing. So he's already contradicted himself within this own content because he's sweeping for a rapist. This is like people have attacked me because I said that Stephen Bennell, Destiny, the streamer who leaked homemade pornography to other parties that then got leaked, and that what else did he do that was bad? Audio recorded consensual sexual liaisons. I said that that's all bad. He shouldn't do that. The people who are suing him should be compensated, but I don't think that he should ultimately end up in jail or prison based off of the law as I currently understood it. I said that, and I caught flack for that. Nick Fuentes right now is defending a man. Well, Nick Fuentes isn't a particularly popular guy, so this isn't that coherent of a point, but I'm still going to make it anyways. Nick Fuentes is openly defending a guy who has a harem in Romania that have talked about how he used the Loverboy method in order to turn them into prostitutes and physically, verbally, and emotionally abuse them. There's two people in the United Kingdom who repeated the same charges. Both of them have talked about the physical abuse, and one of them has audio recordings of Andrew Tate admitting to rape. And then we have a woman in Los Angeles who he tried to recruit to Romania, alleging the same thing. At what point, when you have a dozen women alleging physical abuse, rape, and sex trafficking, do you just say, hey, this guy's, he fights for some ideas that I think are cool, but he's realistically a rapist and a sex trafficker and a person who beats women, and I think all of that is evil and should be condemned, and he should probably go to jail or prison. Why is that hard for a Christian nationalist to say? It is contradictory to all of his alleged values, and yet he's still out here sweeping for it. Amazing.
Really interesting timing. So they've been in a relationship.
Interesting timing maybe Andrew Tate just keeps doing what he does because he doesn't want the Matrix to control his life, something that he's repeated on social media dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of times. Maybe that's a possibility rather than every woman that Andrew Tate has ever abused is lying.
Relationship for almost a year. The relationship started in July 2024. I think at that point, it's pretty well established who Andrew Tate is, the accusations against him, what he's done. So you have a woman who knows who Andrew Tate is, starts a relationship with him. Presumably, she's getting paid, flown out, put up in hotels. You can imagine. I mean, you see the kind of wealth that Andrew Tate is able to mobilize.
Through sex trafficking.
So she's clearly living a nice lifestyle. She's flying to Europe, probably paid for. She's staying at fancy, expensive hotels. Who can imagine the lifestyle? And then she decides when Andrew Tate gets in all the legal trouble in the United States, now all of a sudden she's got a problem. When she was in Romania and Andrew Tate was literally in house prison, he's literally confined in a Romanian jail, and then he's on house arrest. Didn't have anything to say then when she's living over there, when he's actually being accused, when all that is going on, even though apparently this has been going on the entire time. She waits until after he comes to the United States and then gets in all the legal trouble here. All of a sudden, Ron DeSantis and the Attorney General start sniffing around Tate. Andrew Tate leaves the country, where maybe there's a question about whether he'll be able to return given what is taking place. Now, all of a sudden, she has all these accusations. And she posts this big thread on Twitter. She posts like a 30, I don't know how many tweets, maybe it was 10, 15 tweets. But she posts this huge thread on Twitter. I think it's, like I said, 15 or 20 tweets long. And she's apparently producing the receipts. In my opinion, when it comes to these things, you need to fight the battle in court. I'm a big believer. Don't go and tell the public and air all of that out. If there's a crime being committed, literally tell it to the judge. Tell it to the cops. Tell it to the judge. I don't know why she's on social media broadcasting all this, posting the screenshots, everything like that. I mean, I think we know why. Now she's instantly a superstar. Millions of impressions. This is going to be huge for social media, certainly for her meme coin. I'm sure she's going to get a payday off of that. But she posts this huge thread. She's posting screenshots. They purport to be text messages from Tate. Who knows if they're real? And then here's my favorite part. This is the best. So she says, well, you know, he's abusing me, et cetera, et cetera. She says he's beating me. Now, the thing is about abuse is it's completely arbitrary. What a woman says is emotional or verbal abuse, let's be honest, women can stretch that. Sometimes they could just fabricate that out of thin air. So I don't typically find that very credible. If a woman claims, a woman will get dumped by a guy, and regardless, she'll say, oh, he's a narcissist, he's a gaslighter, he's an abuser, blah, 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 whatever. She posts the screenshots. Maybe they're real. Maybe they're not. Maybe it's a sexual thing. Who knows? But the thing about physical violence is it's provable. I mean, if you get your ass kicked, if you're getting hit in the face, there's got to be some proof. And maybe not even just photographic proof, but there's proof of if you're getting your ass kicked, maybe you go to your friend. Maybe you go crying to your parents. Maybe you go to the police. I'm in a hotel. I got beat up. Is there anyone to corroborate this? Did anybody overhear it? Is there a police report from the day it happened? Can anybody that you know corroborate this? Well, she posts a picture. We don't have any of that. We have some screenshots. Big deal. Text messages. Nothing else. At the end of her very long thread where she's making all these accusations, she posts a picture of her face. This is supposed to be evidence of the physical abuse. There's no bruises. There's nothing. She's got makeup on. It looks like a little bit of blush. Her face is a little bit red right here. Looks like her eye makeup is smeared. That's it. That's it. This is supposed to be a pimp. He's beating me up.
Okay. Let's, yeah, this is actually like repulsive. Not so Gen X says, I hate agreeing with Nick, but I said the same thing in her comments if we're talking about that Brie girl. Well, we'll take a look. Yes, Nick has problematic views on women in general. I agree. All right. Well, we're probably not going to break bread on this one, not so Jen, but that's okay. We don't always have to agree in order for you to be in chat. Matter of fact, I welcome disagreement. Okay. So let's go. We got past this Ron DeSantis crap. This is all baloney. You can be a Nazi and still think that beating women and sex trafficking them is bad, right? So what's really interesting, what I really like about the way that we started streaming is we watched a part of an episode from Counterpoints that talked about conspiracy theory thinking. And there's an appeal to anomaly. Now, appeal to anomaly are sentences that effectively say, isn't it weird that? Isn't it weird that? Isn't it weird that? And we got that from Nick today. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that you can't notice weird things, of course. Like if there's something that's objectively weird that or subjectively weird, but a lot of people would agree with your assessment, then bring it up. But the reason why I think that this is kind of baloney is we have a guy who, as I've said before, is credibly accused of sex trafficking. There's evidence of the sex trafficking. He even talks about his own sex trafficking method. We have a guy who has been accused of physical abuse, and there are people who reported the physical abuse in the past. We have a guy who has been credibly accused of rape, and there's voicemails of him admitting to rape. So we have a rapist, sex trafficker, physical abuser. Okay. And then Nick Fuentes's appeal to anomaly is, well, she would have already known that he was a bad guy. So why would she hang out with him? The same reason that everyone hangs out with people who have clout, power, and money. Even if somebody is malicious, even if somebody is evil, oftentimes people want to hang out with them because if they have clout, then you are hoping that by being in their social sphere, you can prove to the audience that you are different. You are interesting. You are insightful. You are intelligent. You are attractive. And therefore, the person who has social clout, some of their audience will cross-pollinate onto your audience. This is literally the nature of politics and social media. All right. And then if they have money, the hope is that if they have more money than they can spend in a lifetime, which Andrew Tate has like 4 supercars and a compound in Romania, he allegedly makes more than $1 million a month, all that kind of stuff. Then if they have money, the hope is that if they have more money than they can spend, then they are going to cut you off a chunk of that cash. And let's face it, money talks. Okay. So just because she is Machiavellian potentially in the way that she wants to garner social clout and in the way that she wants to get money is immaterial to the fact of whether or not Andrew Tate tried to bring her to Romania to sex traffic her and whether or not Andrew Tate beat her and whether or not Andrew Tate raped her. Okay. Sultan Al Fahim says the texts are horrible, while Not So Gen X says the Brie girl undermines the seriousness of the situation to me. Tate is a criminal and serious abuser. Her texts with him were crazy and Tate is unhinged. So let's take a look, right? Not So Gen X says, but her posting all that on X didn't seem like the best way to address it. Seems like she chose to be with him after knowing his history. I don't know. So Not So Gen X, what I would say is Nick is appealing to your sense of anomaly and also the victim being imperfect, which is fine. Like we can acknowledge exactly what you're saying. She could be a bad person too. She could be a clout shark. She could be financially motivated in order to associate with Tate in the first place. She could be, I'm sorry, Ken, if you're still listening, but she could be an e-prostitute. She could be a digital prostitute. That still doesn't justify him physically beating her. That still doesn't justify him potentially trying to recruit her for sex trafficking. And that doesn't justify him potentially raping her. So instead of just talking about it, what we're going to do is we're going to pull it up. Because one of the things that other streamers get frustrated with is when people bring up social situations, or excuse me, not just social situations, but they bring up points, but then they don't substantiate it. So I'm going to search Brie Andrew Tate. There's the lawsuit. Let's find Brie. And you are my property. My name is Brie Stern. I'm from Los Angeles. Okay, so I'm going to bring this over so you guys can see it. Let's go ahead and check out the thread. Okay, You are my property, quote unquote. My name is Bree Stern. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I met Andrew Tate in the summer of 2024, and we were in a relationship for almost a year. Okay. So looking at the photo, we can see a red mark right here. Now, Nick, this does look like, I think they call it an abrasion. Let's take a look at it. What is an abrasion? Definition. An abrasion is an injury when your skin rubs off. So here's an example of an abrasion. That's obviously like a road rash. Here's like a scrape, all that kind of stuff. But if you get slapped or if you get hit, let's take a look at like a punch abrasion. Is there a slap abrasion? Sorry if I'm not getting it immediately, but I do think it's relevant. These are more intense. Although this one might be a good, these ones, right? These can be similar, right? So these ones I would say are more serious than what Bree suffered. But at the same time, right here, this one. This is the perfect example. It's like inflammation caused by a strike, right? Now, some of this can be genetic, but, you know, anyways. It looks like an abrasion to me. Now, could she fake this with makeup? Maybe. But considering that he already has a past of hitting women, considering he already has a past of being choked out, considering he already has a past of, like a past of sex trafficking, I'm inclined to believe her. But let's see what else she says. We met because he needed models for his crypto coin and promised to help me to save my crypto coin, #sister. Well, we already know why she's posting about this, right? The reason why she's posting about this is obviously because she wants clout, she wants money, she wants this, she wants that, and she was physically abused by a famous man. Okay, that's why. All right. We spent as much time together as we could, but when we weren't physically together, we were in communication all day, every day. So he was employing the lover boy method again. He was my best friend. I stood by his side unwaveringly. We made plans to live together, first in Romania, then in Miami once he traveled to America. Okay. He wanted to start a new life together once he arrived. He's already promised other women that he was going to marry them and have children. So this is unsurprising that he was making similar promises to him. He wanted me to have his children and always told me we would be together forever. Andrew told me he loved me every day and I was very much in love with him. Okay, this is literally the lover boy method. Despite the fact that he has hurt me so badly, I still love him. Maybe that is Stockholm Syndrome. I don't know. I'm glad you texted me. I was having anxiety. Anxious little lady over here. You need to be hit. Why? I don't like it. What did I do? You deserve it. Why? Oh, so he's already talking about hitting her. Amazing. The last time I saw Andrew was on March 11th, 2025 at the Beverly Hills Hotel. The last words he said to me before I left the hotel were, "Shut the fuck up, bitch. You will never backtalk me. You are my property. If you're mine, why wouldn't I be able to hit you? Okay. You scared me with what you said. Are you scared of me? Physical violence for me is a huge no. I don't even like when you hit me during sex. It scares me." So literally she's saying, hey, I don't even like it when we're intimate and you like doing a little bit of BDSM stuff. I don't like it when you hit me in general. Physical violence is for me is a huge no. I don't even like when you hit me during sex. It scares me. Boom. There we go. Due to the events that had transpired in the early hours of that day, as well as his final degrading words, something just clicked. I finally recognized that someone who truly loved me wouldn't say the things to me or hurt me repeatedly. So let's check out this text message. I want an update. What happens next? Why are you being mean in other chat? Because I want to beat the fuck out of you. You will give me a child this year, bitch. Why do you want to beat me? It's 12:30 a.m. I'm in the room. I sleep soon. What's the point in having you if I don't beat you and impregnate you? You should be thankful. Awesome. Thanks, Nick Fuentes, the classic Christian nationalist tradcon. What a fucking asshole. Sorry, Ken. I'm sorry for cussing, and I'm sorry to my mother for cussing as well. But we have a young man who is poisoning the minds of tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of young men by telling women that telling men that all women are stupid, and even Christian conservative women who just want an equitable relationship and partnership are actually evil and stupid. And he's defending a man who is still physically abusing women and emotionally abusing them. This wasn't a joke or an internet facade. This was the reality of my boyfriend in my life, and I need to take back control. You are my property, echoed in my mind, and I knew that was not the future I wanted for myself or for my children. It was not easy, but I gathered the courage to do what I had contemplated doing for a long time, leave him. I grabbed my things and walked out of the hotel and out of our relationship. That day, even though I was terrified, I made a promise to myself that I would not go back no matter what he said, no matter what he did. I blocked his numbers, blocked him on social media platforms and on all other communications apps. I went to a doctor. I went to the police. Good. Last week has been very difficult and extremely scary for me. I am an emotional wreck and I'm constantly looking over my shoulder. I'm not the person I was before. Andrew texted me recently and let me know that if you ever betray me, you will regret it. He has told me on many occasions before that if I crossed him, he would ruin my life, rape me, or kill me. I really love hitting you. It's very good for me. And you, it's relaxing. Don't you think? Question mark. Pookie, no, I cry. Coming out about this is really terrifying. Blah, 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 blah. All right. Photos of her getting hit. Why would you extend any charity to Andrew Tate? Why would you extend any charity to somebody who has already been credibly accused of sex trafficking and is facing criminal charges, has already been accused of physical and emotional and verbal abuse by multiple women, and someone who has been credibly accused and there is evidence of him committing rape? Why are you backing this guy, Nick? He's a degenerate. He's a sexual degenerate. He's a social degenerate. He's an evil person. He does bad things willingly. He's a Satanist. And what I mean by that is I don't mean he worships Satan. I mean he's a Satanist in that he worships himself. Andrew Tate worships himself. Why is the based Groyper leader of the Christian nationalists supporting a sexually degenerate Satanist, somebody who worships himself? Why? And it's because he wants clout. He wants power. He wants money. And he's willing to compromise principles in order to do it. He's willing to ally himself with truly evil human beings in order to do it. Seraph702 says, this is like every father's nightmare for their daughters. If you did this to any of my children, girl or boy, there's a strong chance that you are going to reap a physical consequence. I'll put it that way because we're on a polite show. If I find out, let's say I have a daughter. Let's say that I find out my son's, let's say one of my sons is gay. If he's in a physically abusive relationship with a woman, he just needs to leave, right? But if there's a woman or man, I guess, who physically abuses my children and then says that if they ever leave, they're going to kill them, we're going to have at minimum words. Let's put it that way. You are forgetting that Nick Fuentes is a homosexual. Maybe Nick has a homosexual crush on Andrew Tate. Maybe he wishes that he was beaten by Andrew Tate. Maybe he wishes that he was taken to Romania in order to be a cat boy. I have no idea. But yeah. Anyways. So we're hitting like 2 hours. I'm gonna be right back. Give me 60 seconds. I just need to use the restroom. Give me a second. Oh, thank you. Regnar Jordan. I don't know if I should say your name, so apologies. But there's money in my account. So thank you kindly for the donation. It is sincerely appreciated. If you want me to call you something else in chat, just let me know. I'll take but thank you for the donation. Sincerely. It's very much appreciated. And thank you to the beautiful 50 beautiful people cross platform. I am going to leave you in the hands of Nick Fuentes for a moment, but I promise I'll be back as quickly as possible. Thank you for the donation. Sincerely appreciated.
He's making me do all these things. I can't believe the way he talks to me. And people say, okay, well, let's see the receipts. Well, he texted me this and here's my face. And it's so funny because you see people in the replies, they're initially supportive. First tweet goes out, people say, oh, you're so strong. You go, girl. I can't believe this has happened to you. You work your way down the thread. And by the end of it, people look at the picture. They go, LOL. Where's the bruise? What is this supposed to be a picture of? I don't even know what I'm looking at. Your face is red. Okay, you put blush on? You have makeup on? What is this a picture of? And this is a story often told. A guy becomes super successful, super famous, and in particular, they become a target. They make themselves a target for political reasons. We've seen this happen a million times. We saw it play out with Brett Kavanaugh, saw it play out with Donald Trump. Now it's playing out with Andrew Tate. And then all of a sudden, right when the rubber meets the road, And in particular for Andrew Tate, the guy was already under house arrest, already had all these accusations going on. He was living in another country. She waits until he gets in trouble in the United States, the country she resides in, all of a sudden to cook up this story and say, oh, she's this abuse victim. Fortunately, I think the Me Too era is over. And I think we've turned the page on that. I wonder how many people think this is credible. But this comes in concert with like a dozen other developments. This guy comes to the United States. He's under investigation by the Attorney General. He's got a high-profile sexual assault accusation. As far as we can tell, there's no proof. Maybe there'll be something convincing down the line, but nothing so far. And then on top of that, today, Netflix documentary comes out, some miniseries. And the whole thing is about how young men are being turned into incels and women haters and all of this because of the toxic red pill community, because of Andrew Tate. And it's unbelievable how much pushback this guy is getting. And listen, let me be the first to say, because I want to clarify something. We know what Andrew Tate is. He's a pimp. Like, by definition, I'm not saying that like, oh, he's a gangster, he's a pimp. I mean, he's literally a pimp. He did the webcam business. He did the OnlyFans thing. He's not a Christian. He doesn't purport to be a Christian. He seems pretty sleazy, sleeps with a lot of women. I don't want to make it clear. Obviously, I don't approve of those things. I don't think that pornography should be legal. I don't think that the webcam business should be legal. I think that stuff should all be shut down.
All right, so let's pause real quick just so we can address a couple of things that he said that is just factually untrue. No evidence of sexual assault. I'll show that to you momentarily. A Netflix documentary showing that men are being radicalized into black pill, incel, volcel losers, right? Nick Fuentes has been doing that for an entire hour. We've been watching him for 30 minutes or so.
So
25 minutes. We still have 30 minutes to go. This feels like a slog because he said so many dumb and evil things. But there is evidence of sexual assault. I'll literally just show it to you right now. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Nick Fuentes is saying that we got nothing. He's got nothing. Okay, we'll just pull it up. YouTube video, Vice News, Andrew Tate. We watched this on stream the other day. Towards the end.
One of the most dangerous men on this planet.
There we go. It's fine.
Scare tactics to make sure I wouldn't go anywhere, go to the police.
She is withholding her real name.
Here we go.
I always knew, even from back in the day, there was always things said bad about him. But when I'd seen him again in 2013, I thought, oh, all these rumors about him may be false because he's actually been really lovely. The first time I went around his house, because before it was like maybe 3-4 times we got on dates, we started to make out on the bed. Out of the blue, he literally just stopped what he was doing and just laid back. He said, I'm just contemplating whether I should rape you or not. And I promise you, within an instant, he changed. He just jumped straight on top of me, grabbed my throat, started suffocating me, strangling me. The more I didn't want to, it made him so much more aggressive, to the point where he was pinning me down, hurting me. The things he was saying to me, he was like, who do you belong to? Who do you belong to? And the more I couldn't say it, the more he'd hurt me. So I couldn't see an escape. And at that point, I just gave up. I just gave up. And then when it stopped, he went to the bathroom and acted as if it was normal. So I'm like, maybe I did. Did I want it? Did I not? I definitely said to him, please don't, please don't. And he told me, shut the fuck up. Definitely got strangled. I definitely didn't want it. Did he think I wanted it? When you look back, the psychological warfare you have with yourself is like you couldn't even imagine. You wouldn't know, you wouldn't understand it unless you've been through it. Can't even say the damn words.
Have you since come to terms with the notion that that may not have been consensual, that may have been...
I know for a fact it wasn't consensual.
but it's hard to use the word.
Even though I know technically it's true, that did happen, that is what happened to me, I still don't like vocalizing it.
Amelia's method of coping with the alleged rapes was to pretend to herself that it was a normal relationship.
The abuse wasn't consensual because he knew I didn't want it, which he confirms in multiple voice messages and texts to me.
Am I a bad person? Because the more you didn't like it, the more I enjoyed it. I fucking loved how much you hated it. Turn me on. Are you seriously so offended I strangled you a little bit? You didn't fucking pass out. And all the women I've ever slept with, not a single one has ever bitched or complained like you are bitching and complaining now.
Every few months, Andrew.
So yeah, so are we good? Like listen, I know my chat isn't the Volcel, Incel, black pill, red pill chat, but are we good? Is that sufficient evidence? We have women in Romania accusing him of similar behavior. We have women in the UK accusing him of similar behavior. We have a woman in Los Angeles accusing him of similar behavior. At what point is it a half dozen to a dozen women all accusing him of the same behavior of being lovely at the beginning, being a lover boy, telling people that he loves them, he wants to have kids? That's in this documentary too, by the way. That he wants to have kids with them, that he's really only there for them. All the other girls are just a distraction, this, that, the other. He dates half a dozen women. He psychologically manipulates them into becoming webcam models so they can make, let's be real, tens of thousands of dollars per month, which a lot of them make a lot of money. So then they're like, well, it's a lot of money. Even though they've just been sex trafficked, even though they are totally socially isolated, even though they're being verbally and emotionally abused, they are making a healthy chunk of cash. He's taking a lot of it. He's taking at least half. He used to joke. I don't even think he was joking. He used to talk in his PhD classes, which is pimping host degree. He used to talk about how he would defraud these women of their money by pretending that there was more taxes than there were, that there were more fees than there were, that there were more administrative costs than there were. He also defrauded men by saying like, oh, we'll hook up, we'll do this, we'll do that. And then he would have the men spend tens of thousands of dollars in order to meet with these webcam models. And then they would always cancel at the last minute. So the men would keep giving money in order to meet up with these women. He's a pimp. He's a fraudster. He's a thief. And we have the leader of the black pill, red pill Christian nationalist movement in the United States of America defending him, defending Andrew Tate, defending a pimp, defending a fraudster, defending a liar, defending a rapist, defending a physical abuser. So I get it. I'm preaching to the choir. You guys all think that this guy's a piece of dirt. What I want to happen is I want the people who typically defend Nick Fuentes, typically defend Andrew Tate, to just see this, right? To just see that, like, no, there's legitimate evidence. No, the Romanian case has not been dismissed. No, you can be a man without being a piece of garbage or defending other pieces of garbage. The fact that there are tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of young men who are following Nick Fuentes or following Andrew Tate is actually kind of like, I don't know, a modern American tragedy. Anyways, let's continue to watch. I want to watch Nick be a piece of garbage for like another few minutes. But to be honest, like, I'm sure that you guys are getting borderline, like, emotionally, physically repulsed. I am like physically repulsed at this time. So we'll do it for a little bit longer just for the sake of trying to have coherent content. But I have a feeling that he's just going to say, Andrew Tate isn't as bad as he's being portrayed. These women are just after his money. A lot of them knew what they were getting into. And actually the reason why people are going after him is because of the Jews. Like seriously, that's what I predict. Let's see if he does anything different.
Morally, I can't defend a webcam business. I can't defend those things on moral grounds. And, you know, those are not things that I think people should do. I don't think it's moral. I think it's pretty wicked. Let's just say that for starters.
At least we got that.
But that is not why Andrew Tate is being persecuted. Are we going to pretend that the United States government and the governments of Europe are suddenly super concerned about sex trafficking? Seriously? Are we going to pretend that the state of Florida and the United States government all of a sudden is now concerned about pornography, OnlyFans, They're promoting this stuff. It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. You have had internet pornography. It has been around for as long as the internet's been around. Totally unregulated, totally unchecked. As far as I'm concerned, it constitutes a public health crisis. This is just as much contributing to sexual dysfunction as well as sexual immorality as contraceptives, abortion, all the other technological innovations of the last 100 years. Nobody cares. Nobody in the government cares. You had this going on Facebook years ago. Facebook, there was a major investigation where they found the platform was rife not only with regular porn, but child porn. You had public-facing profiles using hashtags, and algorithm was actually suggesting their pages based on the fact that they were hosting, what do they call it now? Sexual abuse material or something like that. Visa and MasterCard had to pull the plug on Pornhub for the same reason.
Well, now he's contradicting his own arguments.
That's just talking strictly about underage people, which constitutes sexual trafficking and sexual abuse. But it's, in my opinion, sexual abuse even when people above the age of 18 do it. You know, we call masturbation the sin of self-abuse. So let's just put that aside, because a lot of people say to me, you're Catholic, how can you support a pimp, a literal pimp? I don't support the pimp activities. I support what he says politically. And the reason why he is being persecuted has nothing to do with pornography. We have to just say it outright. This is a deeply immoral society. Hollywood is putting out movies about trannies, about pedophilia, they're defending pedophiles all the time. They make shows like Euphoria. They're about every kind of sexual perversion, every kind of sexual deviancy. And then they pretend, oh, now suddenly we have a problem with it. Really? No. The reason that Andrew Tate has been subject over many years to censorship, government persecution at the state level, it has nothing to do with those things. It's all political. People like Jeffrey Epstein were tolerated. You know, real sex traffickers were tolerated, defended. The intelligence agencies run cover for them. Literally, the reason Jeffrey Epstein wasn't charged with everything that he was accused of even 20 years ago is because they said he is intelligence. He is part of the intelligence world. So don't tell me they're cracking down on Andrew Tate because of sex trafficking or porn. The government loves porn. The government loves sex trafficking. They protect sex traffickers. Ever heard of Epstein? Ever heard of any of those people? Let's just put that out there.
Oh man, this is hard if you have an 80 IQ. If you have an 80 IQ, this is probably like fire. This is probably great. Like if you're dumb as a rock, this is Kino. All right. So let's break down what he said because actually this is weirdly coherent enough that I understand it while being infinitely more insidious. It's really interesting that it's more coherent than I originally thought, and it's insidious. So the 100 IQ, right? Like 100 IQ is average IQ, right? The 100 IQ criticism I already made, and he already denied. Okay, I said, why are you sweeping for? Why are you protecting a pimp? And so Nick, predicting mentally my argument against him, says, well, actually, I don't support any of these behaviors. I don't support beating women. I don't support sex trafficking. I don't support pornography. These are all degenerate behaviors. However, I support his political message. And the truth is, the moral frogs, the people who say that they care about sex trafficking, they actually don't care about sex trafficking. Ignore the fact that local law enforcement breaks up sex trafficking rings all the time. Ignore the fact that federal law enforcement breaks up sex trafficking all the time. Ignore that pornography has become more regulated over time because the women who were within the industry started talking about the abuse. Ignore all of the social stigma surrounding sex trafficking. Ignore all of that, okay? Turns out the United States government and our culture actually loves degenerate sex and pornography. Well, he's already shifted the argument from rape, physical abuse, and he's keeping sex trafficking. So he's ignoring the rape and the physical abuse. He's dismissing it. He's limiting it to sex trafficking, and he's making sex trafficking and pornography equivalent. So to him, since consensual pornography produced by adults is just not just as abhorrent, but it is still an abhorrent part that seems to go hand in hand with sex trafficking. It's kind of like a magician, you know, he's like flipping around the cards, and then he's like, "Is this your card?" And you're like, "No." And then he's like, "Ha ha!" And you're like, "Damn, how do you pull that one?" It's because over here is rape and physical abuse and emotional and verbal abuse, but over here is pornography that's enabled by sex trafficking, right? So he pulled a magic trick. Here's the rape and sexual abuse, boom, sex trafficking. Okay, so just notice the rhetorical sleight of hand. All right, excuse me, just need to get comfortable. So he brings up Euphoria. The reason why I was laughing, for those of you who don't know, Euphoria is a TV series set on HBO that is about drug abuse and sexual acts of teenage people. It's actually where, who is it? Sydney Sweeney got a big start because she has graphic sex scenes in it. And let's face it, she has large chesticles, right? It's also where Zendaya was always popular, but it's also where Zendaya, I think she used to be a Disney kid. It's where she broke from the Disney mold because in that show, she's like a drug addict who hangs out with a bunch of like sexual degenerates, right? But Jaden, Nick Fuentes' former roommate and best friend, laughed and talked shit about Nick Fuentes when they stopped being roommates because Nick loved Euphoria. Now, here's the steel man. I'm not going to straw man him. I'm going to steel man him. Euphoria is really good at showing degenerate behavior, but it's also really good at showing the negative consequences of degenerate behavior. There's people who there's people who overdose. There's people who have their porn leaked. There's people who are treated poorly. There's people who are emotionally and physically abused. There's all sorts of things in Euphoria that actually show like the negative consequences of sexually and drug degenerate behavior. So I think that while Jaden believed like, oh, Nick enjoys it because he's a degenerate himself, I think Nick would argue he enjoyed the show because it pointed out like degenerate behavior and its consequences, right? But it's just weird that he would bring it up as an example. Final major point. He's bringing up Jeffrey Epstein because Jeffrey Epstein was allegedly swept for by the intelligence community because he was blackmailing powerful people. So Nick Fuentes is saying that everyone at the CIA, everyone at the FBI, everyone in law enforcement, everybody at the state's attorney's office, everybody in central government actually signed off on Jeffrey Epstein being covered up, which is not true. There were segments of the FBI and law enforcement that were legitimately pissed off that the state attorney's office of Florida swept for Jeffrey Epstein. I guarantee you that if we talk to the CIA or talk to the FBI and they were able to talk off the record, they would tell you that there were factions within the FBI and the CIA that were furious that Jeffrey Epstein and all of his co-conspirators and the members of the government and the members of industry who all had sex with underage prostitutes that Jeffrey Epstein generated blackmail from. They're probably furious that these people aren't being prosecuted in public. But the truth is, the web of people who abused power and abused teenage prostitutes is probably pretty deep. And so as a result, in order to rip up that corruption network, you effectively have to be willing to get killed. I wouldn't be surprised if there were people who got killed as a result of the Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy. So he's appealing to that as if the federal government is endorsing it. But let's be real. It's factions. It's factions within the federal government that are probably saying, if this story came out, it would be so damaging to so many people. And so much of it is allegations based off of weak evidence that we're not going to release it. So anyways, I find this insidious because he's using the rape and sex trafficking of some women to excuse the rape, sex trafficking, and physical abuse of other women. When you actually look at what he's doing, when you're not distracted by the magic, Nick Fuentes is magically endorsing, excusing sex trafficking, physical abuse, and rape. So don't get distracted by the magic.
2022 and 2023, they brought the hammer down and in 1 week banned him from everything. TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, because of his politics. Then they threw him in jail in Romania because of his politics. Why do you think they dropped the case? The case was created.
Literally in this video, Nick admitted that he had to fly back to Romania in order to continue the case. So he's either lying or he's stupid.
And then the case went away just as easily, having nothing to do with the evidence in the case. He never had a trial. It was because of the political pressures. He was arrested under Biden. He was freed under Trump. It was political. And then Tate comes to the United States and they say, once again, the Attorney General of Florida, he doesn't say we've received new evidence. He didn't say we got a police report. We know what's up. They said, we don't like this guy. We're going to open a criminal investigation just because we don't like what he's up to. It's political. And you look at what Andrew Tate is saying, and this guy, I've said it before, and this is controversial, but hear me out here. Andrew Tate is pushing political viewpoints for all the people that don't like him on this side that are more red-pilled than almost anybody else that is actually, strictly speaking, in politics, explicitly, overtly a political pundit.
We're going to get one guide. We're going to go ahead and do it because it's fun. And then we'll ban Go Ask Alice. Go look up the vids about Connor sweeping for left-wing degenerates where he admits that he is overlooking their perversion for money. What she's referring to, which I will expand, is that in, what is it? It's 2025 right now. In January of 2023, I think, might have been 2024. 2024. In January of 2024, Vaush, a left-wing creator who I literally have on the docket because I'm going to criticize him today, became a part of an organization called Progressive Victory. This was a Democratic PAC that was seeking to get as many people in alternative media as possible to work together in order to criticize and go after Trump, and also to go after Trump, but also to try to take the money, time, and attention and energy of the alternative media space and turn it into real world political action. The two largest creators that they had was Stephen Bonnell, also known as Destiny, and Vaush, the Ian Kaczynski, a further left streamer. He's a narco socialist or something. I don't remember I don't know what he claims to be these days. Vaush, in January or February of 2024, was revealed to have pornography on his computer that was cartoon depictions of lolicon. These are teenage girls between the ages of 12 and 18, 13 and 18, and it's disgusting. Everyone knew that I thought it was disgusting then. Everyone knew my opinions on it because I'd already talked about lolicon in the past. I think it's gross. I think it's disgusting. And I actually recommended to PV that they either make a public statement effectively saying that, like, hey, if it could have been a screw up. We're still working with them towards political ends. But if this happens again, we're going to distance ourselves. We're not going to work with them anymore. That was my recommendation. They didn't listen to my recommendation. And some people took issue with the fact that I wasn't creating content about Vaush. And the truth is, everybody already knew what was happening with Vaush, and I didn't add to the dog pile. And so they criticized me for that. That's a very weak criticism because everybody already knows my perspectives on lolicon. Everybody knows my perspectives on Vaush. When it comes to Stephen Bonnell II, Stephen created consensual homemade pornography with other consenting adults. He sent that pornography to another individual without their consent, and then that pornography got leaked. Okay. And so he caught a bunch of flack because he's been the consent king. He always talks about sexual consent, right? And then he also allegedly audio recorded consensual sexual encounters without the express consent of the individuals. And I said that people are saying that he should be on a sex offense registry. They said that he's a sex predator, and that's just not accurate. Okay. The audio recording wasn't consensual, though. That has been confirmed to exist. There's a audio recording of a homosexual encounter that we don't know whether or not it was consensual. And then Sherry says that there's an audio recording of an encounter that she had with Destiny that was not consensual. We don't have any of this confirmed. None of this has been proven in court. None of this has even been litigated. None of this has even been prosecuted. Okay. So I said that the people who were going for Destiny's digital head were exaggerating their case. I think it's interesting to me that Ask Alice on Monday and on Wednesday came in order to accuse me of hypocrisy for public positions that I've already articulated, to say that I'm like a liar or a grifter when I literally just articulated the entire situation. And this is in the context of, we have Nick the Knife Fuentes, a dissident right-wing leader who is encouraging his audience to dislike women, dislike Jews, to be black-pilled about society, to hate themselves, to hate the world, and all that kind of stuff. And he is making a rhetorical argument to excuse the actions of a man who raped women, beat women, and sex trafficked women. So I'm just going to be real. Ken doesn't have to agree with me. He doesn't have to back me on this perspective. If I take some kind of public flack for it, it's okay. On the scale of sex crimes on 1 to 10, looking at cartoon pornography is bad. Of minors is bad. And I would put that at like a 3 out of 10. Leaking consensual homemade pornography, I would put that at like a 4 or a 5. Creating audio recordings, I would put that at like a 4 or a 5. Raping people and physically beating them and threatening them with death, I would put at a 9. Okay? That's where I would put that. And then sex trafficking women and using the lover boy method in order to exploit them, I would put at an 8 or a 9. All right? And I think that for under 4, or, you know, around here where the crimes and statutes start, Vosh will not go to jail. Stephen Bonnell will not go to jail. They both deserve public criticism. Andrew Tate, because he committed sex crimes that are a 9, he should be publicly criticized. His supporters should be publicly criticized, and he should go to jail or prison. That feels like a coherent worldview to me. Conservative liberalism, he worked with Vaush when Connor. No, I didn't. I worked for PV, which is an organization that Vaush also worked for. So you're lying, and I don't care. So pound sand, go someplace else. You are a distraction, and you're not interested in the content. So bye. Everyone say goodbye to Ask Alice. Bye. Let's continue.
He has a better position on feminism, better position on Israel, better position on the Russia war when that was going on COVID, on the election. I'll give you a perfect example. During the height of the election fraud in 2020 and 2021, Tucker Carlson was saying there is no fraud. To this day, he says he doesn't believe there was fraud. There was no credible evidence. Andrew Tate said there was. You had mainstream commentators like Shapiro and even others that are more respected. Shapiro's a joke now, but they were saying get vaccinated. Tate was against the vaccines. You had almost everybody. When I said, you know, can we get a round of applause for Russia? Everybody was pro-Ukraine. Tate was pro-Russia. And then, of course, on the war in Gaza, almost nobody's talking about the war in Gaza. And if they did talk about it, it was only after it became almost unavoidable and undeniable. And especially now that we're going to a war with Iran, Tate was pushing criticism of the Jews in Israel, goes on major platforms like Nelk and others and criticizes the Jews in Israel and their power over the country. Platforms, me, yours truly. And, you know, Piers Morgan, Patrick Bet-David, Tim Pool, they're all too cowardly to have me on the show. They make excuses. We know the real reason why. Andrew Tate would do a Twitter space with me and so on. And all this persecution is coming down, strictly speaking, for that reason. Andrew Tate is further to the right than almost anybody in the right. He gets more pushback than anybody, more censorship, more government persecution for those reasons. And it's like I said at the very beginning, I think a big part of that is because he criticizes Israel. He may even potentially, who knows, maybe getting money from the United Arab Emirates or from one of these Arab sheiks, one of these Gulf countries. I mean, I think that's plausible. Maybe there's an organized crime element. I mean, who knows? But I think the Jewish element is a big part of it. And then on the other side, we have to talk about how what Andrew Tate is known for is criticizing feminism and women. And I want to defend that position in particular.
We're going to listen to his criticism of feminism and women, and then we're going to move on just because I am getting tired of Nick. It's funny in the beginning. It's fun in the beginning. We'll probably engage with this content in the future. But, what he's essentially doing, at least the way that I view it, is he's engaging in a clout transaction. He's saying that I'm thankful that Andrew Tate gave me a platform when I was the most canceled person because I'm critical of Israel. I'm anti-COVID vaccine. I go against the federal government on this, that, the other. I'm pro-Russia. I'm pro this. I'm pro that. These are all distant right-wing ideas, right? And so because Andrew Tate was gracious enough to give me clout, money, and by proxy, money and influence, I am going to return the favor where I'm going to sweep for his degeneracy. So for me, this isn't any more deep than that. This probably isn't any more interesting than that. I would be more interested in engaging with his perspectives on like women and relationships and sex and power and family. I would be interested in engaging with that. So I'm going to give him another minute to kind of like articulate Andrew Tate's perspectives on sex and women and feminism. But honestly, like at this point, I am like sufficiently repulsed that I'm okay. I think we got what we could out of the segment. Counterpoints, not to be disruptive, but if violently raping someone is a 9, especially when they're the age they were, then what's a 10? Do you really want an answer to what's a 10? A 10 to me would be child sex abuse. So basically graping a child. Also probably like necrophilia, like killing someone and then graping their corpse. I would put that at a 10 as well. So I'm not saying that grape isn't bad. Like that's obviously one of the worst things on the planet. And if you commit that crime, then you should be incarcerated for your life and maybe even killed by the state, right? Especially like forcible grape, right? But necrophilia, I would put at a 10. And then child grape, I would put at a 10, 100%. And both of those, like necrophilia, especially if you like killed the other person, then I would be like, yeah, you should be euthanized, right? Okay, you guys can say it's a 10. I don't care. That's fine. I would put necrophilia and child rape above rape. So if you don't agree, that's totally fine. I don't care if you agree with me. 9 or a 10 is inconsequential. You should still be incarcerated by the state for probably your entire life, and you should still be maybe killed by the state. Especially if you don't have the consent of the corpse. Come on, man. Come on, man. We're trying to run a family-friendly show here. I am being sarcastic about that, but we are trying to sanitize our language a little bit while engaging with very extreme concepts. BizD said, just hopped in. What the fudge are you talking about? Necrophilia, lol. Well, we're talking about Nick Fuentes defending... I said just kidding. I said it was a joke. We are watching Nick Fuentes defend Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate is, we showed evidence earlier in the stream, is a sex trafficker and a credibly accused rapist and physical abuser of women. So I'm sorry if I'm running out of a little bit of steam, but I'm actually like, I'm genuinely like emotionally, physically repulsed by Nick. And so I want to see if he has anything substantive to say. And then I think I want to move on.
I don't think it's moral to be beating women, and I don't support being a pimp.
Oh, thanks,
But
Nick.
let's be honest. We do have a problem in the West with women. This is something I've talked about on the show for as long as I've been doing it. And it's always so funny to see the responses from people. People call me an incel. People call me gay. People say I don't have a family, so I have no room to talk. People say I'm being a bad Christian. They use my religion against me.
Yeah.
The problem in the West is that women are out of control. They're out of control. If you believe in the natural order, if you believe in the Christian moral order, if you believe in the Christian creation story, the book of Genesis, then properly understood, the role of women in our society is secondary. It is not primary. There is nothing in the Bible that would give you any idea that in a social context, women should have equality with men. There's nothing in the Bible that says this. And people like to say, neither male nor female, neither Jew nor Gentile. Spiritually, maybe you have a point. But from a social point of view, there is nothing in the Bible that would tell you that men and women are the same, that they're equal, that they should have equal standing in society. And yet, I don't care who it is. I don't care how based they are, if they're trad or Christian or whatever, almost everybody today is defending the position that women should have political, social, legal equality. Almost everybody is effectively a feminist. Everybody on the left and almost everybody on the right is effectively a feminist. And when I put it simply like this and say, look, I don't want to hear women talking back to men. I don't want to hear women in public giving men shit, talking back, raising their voice. Women should not have the freedom to wear whatever they want, say whatever they want, go wherever they shouldn't. It should not be like this. And by the way, this fertility crisis that we're having, it has almost everything to do with the role of women, that they're educated, that there was this emancipation, liberation of women.
Okay. This is very annoying. Yeah. Well, okay, he's making a scriptural argument, but I don't even think that scripture fully supports his perspective either. So let's pull up scripture. Matthew 19:5-6, and said, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherever they are, no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. There's got to be a better one, right? Is it King James? And said, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife. And oh, it's the same thing. Is there not a, come on, in English, okay? Where they, okay. So for this cause shall a man leave a father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherever they are, no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined, let no man put asunder. So the whole point of this is like a Christian ordination. You're saying the Catholic Bible? What's the Catholic Bible? I'm showing my ignorance. Is there a standardized Catholic Bible? It doesn't say Catholic here. What's the standard Catholic Bible? What is the standard? I was raised with King James. I'm not gonna lie. The New Revised Standard Edition. All right. The new King James is easier to say. Revised Standard Edition Catholic Bible. Matthew, what was that? I forget what it was. Matthew 19:5-6. Matthew 19:5-6. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, no human must separate. That's even better. That's even better for my argument. Okay. So the whole point of this is that you wouldn't beat your own body unless you're a psycho. You wouldn't set it on fire. You wouldn't put cigarettes out on it. You wouldn't verbally berate yourself. You wouldn't do this. You wouldn't do that. You would approach it with a respect, and you would approach it with love if you're good to yourself, right? And so the whole point of this is to say that from a Christian perspective, I am of the opinion. You don't have to agree with me if you're giga progressive, if you're giga liberal, you don't agree with me and you believe in like true equity and equality of the sexes. We don't have to see perfectly eye to eye, okay? But I think that men and women are obviously complementary. Okay? I'm going to be a little vulgar, so you're going to have to indulge me. I do not have a uterus. I have a penis and testes. My wife has a uterus. I cannot randomly grow a uterus, and I cannot have children. And we are both interested. My wife and I are both heterosexual. We are both interested in a heterosexual, monogamous relationship with the purpose of raising children. We are both interested in that project. And so she has the uterus. She needs some level of protection while she's in a vulnerable state. She needs economic security. She needs physical security. She needs a place to stay. She needs somebody who is willing to provide emotional and physical security while she's pregnant, because that's an incredibly vulnerable position for a human being to be in, is be pregnant, carrying another life within you. And then I have to be willing to be vulnerable in another way, where I have to be willing to work. I have to be willing to provide. I have to be willing to figure things out when there's no one else around me who has a guidebook on how to live, except for, of course, the Bible and my parents and my community. But I have to be strong enough in order to provide that emotional and physical security. And so that takes a certain amount of pain and sacrifice. She is enduring physical pain and physical sacrifice in order to bring life into the world. And I have to endure physical pain and emotional sacrifice and financial sacrifice in order to bring life into the world. We are complementary. I cannot do this without her, and she cannot do it without me. She is not my slave. She is an extension of our goals as a family. And so this biblical alleged, I would love to see his scriptural references for why you're allowed to tell women to shut up and sit down and whatever. I'm sure he'll base it off of Paul, but you know, I would like to see his scriptural references for why women have to defer to men in all things without consultation. That I think is pretty silly. So what does Paul say about women? I am a little bit of a heretic, so don't like take this necessarily say about marriage. Yeah, sure. Let's see what he says about marriage. The Bible and marriage. Paul, thoughts on marriage. Paul is somebody who came after Christ. Let every man have his own wife and let every woman have her own husband. Okay, so that's for monogamy. Andrew Tate's not monogamous. I'm not going to read this whole thing. The point is, if Nick sees the segment and he wants to come after me and show me his scriptural references for why women must defer to men in all things, you're welcome to do it. I would say I brought up a scriptural reference that I think justifies a more egalitarian approach to relationships and a more complementary approach to relationships, even if you're being a Christian, even if you're being traditional. Isn't every living being just an extension of you? That's more like a Taoist concept. Dominion over women is just silly. You would have to give me a scriptural justification for dominion over women. And that's even if we just accept that scripture is a sufficient basis on which to deprive other human beings of equal treatment under the law, which we're not even conceding. We're just trying to work within his spiritual framework. Malachi 2 touches upon this. Okay, let's check out Malachi 2. Although I don't recognize that as a book in the Bible. Am I being ignorant? KJV, Malachi. All right, let's look at Malachi 2. I don't remember the book of Malachi. And now, you priests, this warning is for you. If you do not listen, if you do not resolve to honor my name, says the Lord Almighty, I will send a curse to you, and I will curse. Because of you, I will rebuke your descendants. I will smear on your faces for the lips of a priest. Where's the women? Do we not all have one Father? Did God not create us? Why do we profane the covenant of our ancestors by being unfaithful to one another? Judah has been unfaithful. You're going to have to give me like a specific verse, man. This is even if we accept like scripture as the way that we should ordain it. It is Old Testament. It's got to be, right? Malachi on marriage. Should I do that? I'll do that. Sorry for going down a thing, but I actually am like a little tired of hearing Nick bloviate Malachite on marriage. Malachite scripture on marriage. 16 and 17, you say. Let's check out 14 and 16. You ask why. It is because the Lord sees how you treated the wife you married when you were young. You broke your promise to her even though she was your partner and you had an agreement with her. God made husbands and wives to become one body and one spirit. This is a reinforcement of what I was saying, for his purpose so they would have children who are true to God. So be careful and do not break your promise to the wife you married when you were young. The Lord of God Israel says, I hate divorce and I hate people who do cruel things as easily as they put on clothes, says the Lord all-powerful. So be careful and do not break your trust. This, I would say, is anti-Tate. So let's do Malachi 2:17, and then I think we'll let him yap for another couple seconds, and then we're going to move on. We'll take a little breaky poo and then move on. You have wearied the Lord with your words, but you say, how have we wearied him? By saying everyone who does evil is good in the sight of the Lord, and he delights in them. Yeah, this is literally explicitly anti-Andrew Tate, by the way. This is explicitly anti-Andrew Tate. He is cruel, and he delights in his cruelty. I don't know if I could be Christian. I'd probably be more Buddhist Taoist than also believes in a central creator figure. Sure, I'm a deist. Sapien Green says, as an aside, have you ever read the short The Egg by Andy Weir? I haven't. Okay. All right. I think I'm good. Okay. We're going to end the segment. We can engage with Nick another day. Obviously, he's good content. He's good fodder. We did peak out in the 50s when I was getting a little spicy about him. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I think it's sufficient to say that Nick believes in Christian nationalism. He is anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic. He believes that Israel runs the world and Jews run the world in proxy for the state of Israel. He does think that women, despite never being in a relationship and still being a virgin, he believes that women should defer to men. He encourages his audience to be cynical, to be black-pilled, to be cruel, to be mean, and to be sympathetic to a man who has been credibly accused of rape, sex trafficking, and beating women. And while he himself will not defend sex trafficking, beating women, or rape, he will provide political cover for him. Why are you actually looking up scripture? I thought the point was to just claim the Bible says so and leave it at that.